They arrive in the dead of night. Unmarked planes touch down. Dusty, forgotten airstrips, far from prying eyes and satellite paths. Men disembark, their faces hardened by experience. They carry no flags on their uniforms. Their uniforms are often a mismatch of fatigues, a deliberate blend of anonymity. They speak Russian. Ask Moscow and these men simply do not exist. They are ghosts, spectral figures, moving through the world's most violent conflicts, leaving behind a trail of whispers, leaving behind a trail of fear, leaving behind a trail of bodies. Their mission objectives are never published, their casualties never recorded. The ultimate deniable asset, a phantom force for dirty work. These are not your typical soldiers, not bound by the Geneva Conventions, not subject to the public scrutiny of a national army. A different breed entirely. Private military contractors, mercenaries. But those labels feel too simple for what they are. They appear where chaos reigns. Civil war in Africa, separatist struggle in Eastern Europe, political crisis in the Middle East. They don't arrive with parades or declarations. Their presence is felt, a subtle, decisive shift in power. So who are these men? Where do they come from? The trail, though deliberately obscured, often leads back to a complex and shadowy network of Russian private military companies, PMCs. The most notorious of these is the Wagner Group, a name whispered with fear and awe in intelligence circles. Wagner isn't in any official register. No headquarters, no public-facing website, no recruitment office. A ghost entity existing in its battlefield actions and in quiet spy conversations. The fighters are often drawn from elite Russian forces, Spetsnaz, VDV paratroopers, men forged in Chechnya, other post-Soviet conflicts, men who left official service, perhaps disillusioned, perhaps chasing money, perhaps drawn to a life on the edge, recruited via encrypted channels and word of mouth, vetted for skills, loyalty, and secrecy, trained in secret camps, often far from civilization, honed into instruments of war. The connection to Moscow is the elephant in the room. The Kremlin officially denies links. Russian law forbids mercenary activity, yet evidence of state support is overwhelming. The first time this shadow army truly stepped into the international spotlight was in 2014 during the conflict in eastern Ukraine. As unmarked little green men seized control of Crimea, another, more brutal fight was brewing in the Donbas region. It was here that reports first emerged of highly disciplined, well-equipped Russian-speaking fighters leading separatist militias. They were not locals. They fought with a professionalism that betrayed years of elite military training. These were the prototypes, the first major deployment of the private military model. They trained local insurgents. They led key assaults. According to numerous reports, they eliminated uncooperative separatist commanders to keep the movement aligned with Moscow. From the muddy trenches of Ukraine, their theater expanded dramatically. The next major sighting was in Syria, a conflict of staggering complexity. As the regime of Bashar al-Assad teetered, these Russian contractors arrived. They were not peacekeepers. They were frontline shock troops tasked with the most dangerous missions. They spearheaded the assault to retake Palmyra from ISIS, fighting and dying where the official Russian military would not go. They secured oil and gas fields. The African continent has become a key laboratory for this new form of shadow warfare. In countries plagued by instability, weak governance, and vast natural resources, these private military companies have found fertile ground. Their model here is particularly insidious. They don't just offer military support, they offer a full-service package of regime security. In exchange for their services, training the Presidential Guard, running anti-insurgency campaigns, providing personal security for top officials, they are granted lucrative concessions to the country's natural wealth. It's a modern form of colonialism, trading bullets for diamonds, gold, oil. A prime example is the Central African Republic. Russian contractors arrived, ostensibly as unarmed military instructors. Soon, however, they were seen on the front lines, leading government forces in brutal campaigns against rebel groups. Their influence grew rapidly. A Russian national was appointed as the president's national security advisor. The Wagner Group, or entities linked to it, reportedly took control of valuable diamond and gold mines, creating a revenue stream that makes their operations self-funding. They have effectively embedded themselves into the very fabric of the state. So the effectiveness of this shadow army really hinges on one core principle: invisibility. Their operations are built to be untraceable, to vanish from the historical record. This all starts with personnel. Men who join effectively cease to exist on paper. Service records are scrubbed, passports replaced with false IDs. Digital footprints are erased, they become ghosts before the battlefield. This anonymity is their key armor. On the ground, their tactics are covert. They avoid large-scale confrontations. They operate in the gray zones. They embed with local militias. Wearing local uniforms, using local equipment. Missions are short, sharp, brutal. Night raids, targeted assassinations of leaders, sabotage to cripple morale and logistics. They use encrypted comms. They maintain strict operational security. Even local allies stay in the dark. After operations, evidence is sanitized. Witnesses are intimidated or eliminated. A digital disinformation campaign follows, flooding social and local news with conflicting reports. A fog of war forms, blocking journalists and investigators. The ultimate weapon of this shadow army is not the rifle or the rocket, but fear. Their very existence is a psychological operation, designed to sow paranoia, mistrust, and instability. They are the monster in the closet, the unseen threat that could be anywhere, at any time. For a rebel leader in Africa or a political dissident in Eastern Europe, the knowledge that a team of highly trained state-sponsored assassins could be hunting them is a paralyzing thought. It forces them to look over their shoulder, to mistrust their own inner circle, and to live in a constant state of anxiety. This fear is a more effective tool of suppression than any conventional military force could ever be. Their goal is often not to win a war in the traditional sense, but to destroy an enemy from the inside out. They specialize in what military theorists call non-linear warfare, a strategy that targets the very fabric of a society. They don't just attack military targets, they attack the bonds of trust that hold a community together, or a nation together. The entire architecture of this shadow network is built upon the foundational principle of plausible deniability. It is a carefully constructed shield that allows the Russian state to project power into the international arena while avoiding the political consequences, economic consequences, legal consequences. When questions are asked, the official response from Moscow is always the same: a flat, unwavering denial. There are no Russian servicemen in Libya. The men in the Central African Republic are civilian instructors. The Wagner group does not exist as a legal entity and has no connection to the Russian government. This mantra is repeated ad nauseum regardless of the mounting evidence to the contrary. This strategy is effective because it exploits the gray areas of international law and the slow, consensus-based nature of diplomacy. While intelligence agencies in the West may be certain of the Kremlin's involvement, proving it in a way that would stand up in a court of law or justify a major international response is exceedingly difficult. The use of private companies, even phantom ones, creates a legal firewall. Behind the geopolitical strategy and the covert operations, there is a profound human cost. This cost is paid not only by the victims of their campaigns, but also by the ghost soldiers themselves. These men are often lured by the promise of high pay, sometimes earning 10 times what they would in the regular Russian army. For many, coming from economically depressed regions of Russia, this is an opportunity they cannot afford to pass up. They are promised adventure and a chance to use their elite skills. They are sold a vision of being part of a patriotic, albeit secret mission to restore Russian greatness on the world stage. The reality, however, is often a brutal descent into a hellish existence. They are sent into the most dangerous meat grinders of modern warfare with minimal support. If they are wounded, medical care can be rudimentary at best. If they are killed, their bodies may be left behind on the battlefield, their deaths unacknowledged. Their families are often left in the dark, receiving a lump sum of cash and a stern warning to remain silent. Investigative journalists in Russia who have tried to tell the stories of these fallen soldiers have faced threats, intimidation, and violence. The state that uses these men as its hidden fist is the same state that erases their memory when they are no longer useful. The stories that have emerged from former fighters paint a grim picture. They speak of a culture of extreme brutality, both towards the enemy. As we peel back the layers of this shadow war, we are left with a deeply unsettling question. It is a question that echoes from the battlefields of Ukraine to the diamond mines of Africa. A question that haunts the halls of power in Washington, London, Brussels. While the fighters on the ground may be private contractors, and the companies that hire them may be phantom entities, the strategic coherence of their actions points to a single, guiding intelligence. The operations are too well funded, too well equipped, and too perfectly aligned with Russian foreign policy to be the work of a simple mercenary outfit. So, who is really pulling the strings? The evidence points overwhelmingly towards the highest echelons of the Russian state, specifically its military intelligence agency, the GRU. The logistics, the weaponry, the intelligence support, and the political top cover all bear the hallmarks of a state-sponsored covert operation.